Morning, everyone. Welcome to Bessie Benner Metzbohm Park. It's a beautiful day out, that's for sure. We picked a good location. Go ahead and call the roll. Mrs. DeTore, he's not here. Mr. Bates? Here. And Mr. Preston?
Here.
First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda or the addendum items.
So moved. Second.
Call the vote. Mr. Preston?
Yes.
And Mr. Bates?
Yes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to approve or amend the meeting minutes from the May 12th, 2020 board meeting.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any questions on the meeting minutes from May 12th? If not, we'll call the vote. Mr. Bates?
Yes.
And Mr. Preston?
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is a presentation of the financial statement for the month of May 2020. Any questions on the financial statement for the month of May? Just want to point out in revenue, we received our state rollback real estate tax reimbursement, $402,000. If there are no questions, the monthly financial statement for the month of May will be entered into the record. All right, moving on to the vouchers. Entertain a motion to approve the vouchers for the month of May with the exception of those from Arms Trucking. And we'll take questions.
Second.
All right, any questions on vouchers for the month of May? Now, we'll call the vote. Mr. Preston
Yes.
and Mr. Bates.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to new business, planning and operations update. Mr. McHugh, there you are. So, a few updates on projects. As you know, 2 projects under construction right now, Walton's Gorge and Sunnybrook Stream Restoration. And Matt also has a short presentation on the design for Swine Creek Lodge, which will go to construction next year.
So yeah, with Welton's Gorge, we're kind of moving along. Actually, they are kind of finishing up with the initial earthwork. The retention basin's all cut in. They cut everything to subgrade for all the drive parking areas and the pavilion structure. So that's kind of moving along nicely. Sunnybrook Preserve is design build. We're actually just in the process, the site survey work's done. We're going to be looking at some preliminary concepts based on our original plan that the consultants are working on. And then that would be moving towards permitting once we kind of approve their initial concept. So I think that's actually this week we're going to be kind of reviewing some preliminary plans from the consultants. And then internally, our guys are doing actually some bridge repair here, and we finished up some repair work on the bridge at Sunnybrook, and then they're going to be moving, kind of finalizing some stuff at Big Creek from last year, and then they'll be moving to Welton's Gorge a little bit later this summer. So that's kind of all the construction. For the Swine Creek project, Annie and I will kind of go through. Annie's our park planner. She's been working on the overall master plan. But this was something that we had in the budget for construction, as John mentioned, next year. I think we're at Swine Creek Preserve a couple meetings ago.
Yes.
So you can see Swine Creek's one of our oldest lodges. And we're kind of dealing with some issues with the roof and a couple other things. So Annie's been working on, we kind of looked at initially just overall the area up around the lodge. So some of the program elements were, looking at Swine Creek. The lodge itself is utilized quite frequently, so we wanted to still kind of go with that idea of a lodge that can be used kind of throughout the year. Then also thinking about Swine Creek's where we do all of our maple sugaring program. So some of the other things just initially thinking about was kind of how do we pull maybe some of the sugaring kind of into the feel of the lodge, and then also knowing that, you know, when we have sugaring during spring out there, late winter, early spring, that building's utilized too for some of the saps arising programs. In around the pond itself, Annie looked at some ideas on just creating a little bit of access around the pond, and then also maybe the addition of some fishing platforms. Also, like we do for all of our lodges, looking at program elements like gathering spaces, how it relates to some of the nature viewing in that area. And then we do have an existing restroom that's relatively new. It was put in, I want to say 2009. So how do we kind of integrate that into it? So Annie's going to kind of walk through the concept. She has the handouts for you. And then I'll kind of be like Vanna White and sort of kind of hold.
So the first map in the packet is just the overall context to show you sort of where those improvements are going to take place within the park, and then we'll kind of talk about how we're integrating that design in with the existing features and the trail network that's already there. We also just going to put in some existing condition photos to show the kind of state of the lodge, and so there are some structural and foundation and roof issues. So that was kind of one of the biggest things of why we wanted to rebuild and replace that. But then also too, in those photos, you can see where there isn't a lot of connectivity to the site in terms of like anything to get you from the front to the back, and then, you know, vice versa. So our design does focus on, you know, a more accessible site. So then we have the larger site plan. You can see we have the proposed lodge, and then behind the lodge there is actually like a sensitive bird habitat. And so you'll see in the building rendering how we put in a wall of windows just to kind of provide that opportunity for viewing. The front gathering space will have some stone steps, a little patio area where we could put a fire pit and some picnic tables. And then we do have a side pergola, and then the kind of landscape that you see, Matt was talking about how we wanted to tie in with the sugaring and the programs that happen during that season. So the overall design concept is to kind of mimic the bubbles in the boiling process. So we just kind of wanted to play around and tie into that, to those activities that do happen at Swine Creek. And then we are also connecting to the existing trail to the north, and then also off of the existing bridge. So if you're coming in from the north parking lot, and then yeah, we're just going to utilize the existing entry drive and parking lot. We expanded that a little bit to fit some more spaces in there. And there is an existing fishing platform, but we did want to add another one, as well as the loop trail going around the pond and connecting to the other side of that bridge.
Good.
So concept-wise, what Andy's kind of come up with, she did a kind of really nice job of sort of, you can see some of the reference images in there, but the idea of kind of drawing a little bit from kind of a barn style, but adding in some of the windows like in the back where the kind of the nature viewing area would be for the birding area. Along the parking area, we would be doing some native plantings. Again, kind of pulling through some of the concepts we've done at all of our newer shelters. We're really looking at kind of, whether it's through rain gardens, bioinfiltration, how we're really dealing with stormwater management from the buildings and the, you know, impervious areas up around the building, such as the patio spaces and that. The other thing too is kind of that concept of opening things up, that idea of like, again, when you're out at a park, we want to have that kind of open feeling to our shelters where you can really kind of flow out into the exterior space. So we have sort of some larger barn doors that would open up to kind of really give you nice views out into the pond area. the structure itself would basically sit in the same footprint of the existing structure. And as Andy said, the parking area behind, so Swine Creek kind of has a larger lot where you come across. We do have sort of the expanded area right by the building, which really would just be a couple spots for, people maybe with accessibility issues so they could get up closer to the building without having to come from sort of the main lot there. So overall, concept-wise, we think it fits really well with the park and kind of, again, with some of the program elements of creating that gathering space and some of those things around our shelters that we see, from public use that seems to